All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the REVIVECAST. Today, I'm here with my lovely wife, Nicole. Say hello, Nicole.
Hello.
You saw her on episode 3.
Two.
No, was it 2 or 3?
Two.
It's 2. On adrenal function. Obviously, she went over his history on what she was dealing with at that point in time. How are you doing? How's all that going right now as far as how many weeks has it been since you started your protocol for the adrenal exhaustion?
We're definitely getting close to 3 months.
So now we need to retest at this point.
Yeah.
So what we may do, guys, is we'll retest and we'll do another episode with her to see how her values came up after running the protocol for 3 months and all the things that she did to kind of give some correlation to like how much something can improve if you do everything you're supposed to be doing. But in today's episode, what we're going to discuss is sleep. Now, when we talk about sleep in today's society, that's almost like a hard thing to come by in a sense, because it's almost like people,
It's very undervalued.
overrated, undervalued. People are thinking that it's almost like this mentality of I'll sleep when I'm dead, go hard, go home type mentality. And I understand their thought process because people just have a lot of shit they need to do. And it just feels like there's not enough time to do it in the day. So obviously we stay up all hours of the night. We consume way too much caffeine just to get some stuff done. And then we repeat that process day in and day out. But there just comes a point where the negative effects start occurring. So what do you commonly see? Are you seeing that with like most of your clients? Is it more people having certain jobs that they deal with, or is it just pretty much every day, like regular demographic?
I think it's general population across the board. I mean, we see it a lot with our clients.
Yeah.
Not just competitors or, it's definitely just a lifestyle. Whereas we can say prioritize sleep, you need to get 7 to 9 hours, but then the feedback comes back and they're like 6, 5.
Yeah. I mean, so to give you guys an idea, so just through research and everything, what is perceived to be quality sleep or enough sleep to run a healthy system is going to be 7+ hours. Now, everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's individual. Some people do phenomenal on 7. Most people will do better on 8 to 9. But that's like the threshold for most. Like anything under 7, you're going to start seeing negative effects over time. But the people don't see these effects because it's just their day. Every day is the same. They feel a certain way every day, so they perceive that as normal. But when we obviously start asking deeper questions, digging deeper with data, seeing things like 4-point cortisol tests and just all the symptoms that they're dealing with, we know that's not the case. That 6 hours is enough, 5 hours enough, and sometimes some people 4 hours. It gets crazy.
And I think what some people don't realize is that they can say, "Oh, well, I was in bed for 7 hours." That doesn't give us really the breakdown of, was that quality sleep? How much deep sleep did you get? How much REM sleep did you get? Because I've learned through actual tracking that I could be in bed for 8 hours, but that doesn't mean I got 8 hours of sleep, unfortunately.
Yeah. So guys, like another thing that we see is people, I wake up 2-3 times a night to use the bathroom. Just because you wake up and you go to the bathroom when you wake up does not mean that that's why you woke up. There can be other factors that are causing you to wake up. Just when you wake up, yes, you have to go relieve yourself and go to the restroom. So it's not always cause and effect there. Like I have to use the bathroom, I'm going to wake up, I'll use the bathroom. A lot of times it's I wake up because another factor, and then I just go to the bathroom because I wake up, because you have that feeling. So we're going to discuss, some of the negative effects of low sleep quality, low sleep, what we call low sleep volume, and we'll run through those, go through those in depth, and then we'll also obviously touch on different scenarios, and then obviously some easy take-home points that you can start implementing in your daily routine to help improve your sleep. So like, what does sleep deprivation do to us from a physiological standpoint? One thing it does is increases sympathetic activity. Okay, so when I talk about sympathetic activity, I'm talking about cortisol imbalance. So obviously we can kind of correlate that circadian rhythm, cortisol rhythm. It's intertwined. It's the same thing basically. So when you have that disrupted sleep pattern or lower sleep quality, what can typically happen is you drive up your stress response in the body, cortisol levels will raise, and then from that we can get all kinds of other cascading issues. One major component that we see common is insulin resistance. So you can look into the research into the data, and literally just like 2 poor nights of sleep, like back-to-back nights of sleep, will lower your body's ability to regulate blood glucose. Like, so typically after those 2 nights, like, you could test your blood glucose levels and they'll be higher than they were 2 or 3 days before, because we have that nice balance that our body needs to do its job through the night and recover. And you don't do that and you have disrupted sleep, cortisol levels are going to raise. So obviously when cortisol levels raise when they're not supposed to, it mobilizes glucose into the bloodstream. And then obviously glucose is in the bloodstream. And when it gets in there, it starts raising, and then obviously it comes to a point to where obviously the pancreas has to secrete insulin to bring that down. And if this is repeatedly happening night after night after night, then you're going to get this kind of insulin cortisol seesaw battle going on, and then we get dysregulated blood glucose. So that's like a major effect. So the cause in insulin resistance is major. I think currently there's more than 100 million Americans that have diabetes or that are pre-diabetic. More than, I think, either 1/3 or 1/4 of Americans get less sleep, meaning less than 6 hours. So now you can correlate that number into, okay, why there's 100 million Americans that have diabetes or pre-diabetes. And the thing you want to look at too with the blood glucose regulation or the insulin resistance is, why is that important? Because think about insulin. So it's like a key to the door, right? So the insulin is a key. It unlocks the lock, and it allows the door to open up to let glucose into the cell, right? So if that key is just malfunctioning or not working, you can't get glucose into the cell where we want it. It's going to stay in the bloodstream, and then obviously we're going to cause a higher inflammatory response and all kinds of negative effects. So do you see a commonality there a lot, like people that have poor sleep, and then obviously we get their blood glucose tested and there's like a constantly high all the time? Do you see that correlation a lot?
Yes. I mean, this is why we use that phrase, like fighting a bear in your sleep.
Yeah.
Because when you're sleeping, obviously you should be in a parasympathetic state, rest and digest. But yes, I definitely have clients with insulin resistance, even clients on metformin that still, I have a hard time getting them to prioritize, getting more sleep, and it shows. I mean, this is why we take biometrics. This is why we ask clients, when needed and we see a red flag, to track blood glucose.
Yeah, that's a good point too, is like, because obviously like metformin is a medication. Obviously people use it to regulate their blood glucose. But just like with supplements or anything, guys, you can't just take this magical pill and then all of a sudden everything's good and golden, and you expect all your biometrics to be beautiful. This stuff works in synergy with a healthy lifestyle. And obviously with blood glucose, that means you need to get your sleep. You can't just take metformin to make up for what poor sleep habits are going to cause from a physiological perspective. So it's like putting a Band-Aid on a situation. It may initially bring the levels down, but like Nicole said, like we've seen it numerous times to where people are on these medications that are supposed to bring levels down, and it's still elevated because they're chronically not getting enough sleep day in and day out. So you just can't make up for it by giving someone a pill. And people in today's society, and even that's the issue with the medical field too, and doctors, and especially GPs that are, oh, here's your symptom, you have high glucose, so take the metformin. Hey, instead of like, hey, maybe you need to sleep 8 or 9 hours. Hey, maybe you need to eat a little bit better. they just put the Band-Aid on the symptom, get them out the door, come on to the next patient, because they're just rolling through. I can't remember what it was, but I saw a statistic. I think like on average, a GP will see like 20 patients in an hour, almost 15 to 20, something like that. It was some crazy number. And honestly, like the good quality doctors that I know, like Eric Serrano in Ohio, obviously you know who that is. I think he sees like 2, maybe 3 people in an hour, because he's extremely thorough and he's trying to actually find root causes and not just push people out the door. Another possible effect of poor sleep is going to be a disruption in your leptin and ghrelin levels. So leptin being your satiety signal and ghrelin being your hunger signal. So think about once you get less sleep, that leptin level goes down, which means satiety levels goes down, but then your ghrelin levels, which is your hunger signal, goes up. So what do you think that's going to do? You're going to be, cravings, the sweets, hyperpalatable foods. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow, I didn't get a lot of sleep, but man, that McDonald's sounds really good right now. And that just compounds the issue, obviously. So now we talked about insulin resistance. So, oh, wow, now blood glucose is off. Oh, wow, now I'm really craving some hyperpalatable foods, high sugar, high fats.
Looking for that next hit, basically, to kind of keep blood glucose regulated.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, wow, I need this. They go have their McDonald's or whatever it may be. And then that's obviously compounding the issue too, because obviously when you eat that, it's going to raise blood glucose levels even more, but obviously it's just unhealthy all around. And now you just added another variable into the puzzle of what's basically the all-encompassing of poor sleep. Now we have insulin resistance. Now you're eating more foods that are unhealthy for you than you should. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you should never, ever have McDonald's, but I'm just saying this is like correlating effects. So you have to watch out.
Or you're turning to caffeine.
Yeah. Caffeine's a huge one.
Level up.
Because like you stayed up late working till 1 a.m., right? And then you get up, you're raring to go just because you got stuff to do. You make it for a few hours, but I mean, first, before we even start the day, you're going to get your caffeine and you're going to get that coffee, that venti from Starbucks. Get that hit of caffeine, going to push that cortisol level through the roof. Dopamine response, everything's like, ooh, good and going. And then, midday, 12, 1 o'clock, bam, you crash. And then what do? Oh, wow, another venti Starbucks sounds good. A nitro, whatever people are having nowadays, get that another fix, and then boom, it happens again. You artificially spike cortisol, and then what's that doing with blood glucose? It's shooting it through the roof again. And then what happens with insulin? Oh, it's got to bring it down. Now you're getting this yo-yo battle going on again, and this is happening all day long, right? So you can see like it's like a trickle-down effect. One thing leads into another, into another, into another. And it all comes down, one thing, and we'll talk about it, comes down to creating, a routine, creating good habits. But also, lifestyle is a huge part in all of this. But another thing, too, I want to touch on before we get into that is your immune function, right? So that's another big thing that when you have poor sleep patterns, and I'm not saying 1-2 nights throughout the week it's going to destroy you. We're talking about stuff that's repetitive, stuff that's chronic, not acute. Your body's fine at handling acute periods of pretty much anything, any stress that you throw at it. It's when this stuff becomes frequent and chronic, day in and day out, week after week, month after month, that it becomes like a health issue, so to speak. So you got to understand, like during sleep, your immune system releases certain cytokines, and that kind of goes along with T cells to basically, they help regulate inflammation in the body. So basically, like if you have lower sleep, then it reduces the amount of cytokines you produce, which can help the T cells. And then that leads to a weakened immune system, leading you susceptible to more disease and illness and everything down the road. So you can see another like major component here. People with less sleep are typically get sick a lot more often. And it's harder to get over these illnesses because they're not improving their sleep. So it's another thing. Wow, like we're really starting to put a lot of problems here with sleep, guys. So if like the light bulbs just start going off in your heads, like I really need to get my sleep, and you do. One last thing I'll touch on, because I don't want to like throw everything at you guys. So I want you to be able to kind of take these away too. I don't want to throw the kitchen sink, so to speak, at you. One more simple thing though too. Let's talk a little bit about gut health and digestion. Is what we call a migrating motor complex. So this is something that happens like when you haven't eaten for a while, obviously during a fast through the night when you're not eating. What a migrating motor complex does, it kind of goes through the gut and kind of sweeps out the bad pathogens or anything that's lingering around in the GI tract and the gut and cleans you out. So now if you're disrupting your sleep, not only is your stress response higher, but you're also possibly causing a buildup of kind of the bad bacteria, so to speak, the opportunistic bacteria, because that migrating motor complex can't do its job. So again, now we can like correlate that into the gut as well. So you can see it's just there's so many connecting points here when we're talking about bad sleep or not getting enough sleep that you guys need to really, really make sure you prioritize sleep. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about, we want to give you some points too, like, okay, well, I'm getting 5 hours of sleep. What do I need to do besides get more sleep? Like, what's going to help these people get more sleep? Like, so what are some of the common things that you will prescribe to your clients to start them on this path?
I think some of it comes down to what's the reasoning behind the lack of sleep. Like, is it situational too? Yeah, I just had a late night working that it had to get done, or is it you staying up and watching Netflix and being on your phone or, things of that nature. So I think from that perspective, first it's deciding, like I always encourage clients to look at their schedule and decide what they can say no to. What things are actual priorities to where you could free up another, 1 to 2 hours, which also leads kind of a little bit to what you were saying earlier with the digestion piece too, is we get inquiries sometimes where people are waking up at 3 and 4 a.m. and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's like you're disrupting that important REM cycle where your recovery is not going to be the same. And so we would rather that you sleep more than sleep less if it comes down to, your training or whatever it is. If that means you have to move the training to the weekend so that you're actually getting more sleep. But from a lifestyle perspective, there's a lot that can be done as far as setting routines, having a consistent bedtime and wake cycle, but really setting your bedroom up in a way that's very conducive to sleep. If the issue is, not being able to fall asleep, different environmental factors, things that sound silly, but at the same time are so important. Having a really dark room. Mm-hmm. Also, temperature, the temperature needs to be cool. And then, things that we like, we have a salt lamp. We like a white noise maker. Some people like a fan for a little bit of background. Some people do earplugs if it's necessary. A big thing, too, is to separate what the bedroom is for, right? Mm-hmm. It's for sleep and sex. Yep. So
great minds think alike, right?
That's
there.
Right.
Sleep and sex. So, I mean, honestly, like we literally, I know everybody likes their house the way they like it. But if all possible, like we don't put a TV in your room. Yeah. Because leave it for sleep. Go to the living room. That's where you do your entertainment, blah, blah, blah. Separate it as much as you can. Now, I know everybody's not going to listen to that.
No work, no television. Mm-hmm. I know that those may be like habitual kind of things for some people, that's their, sure. But that's where you have to change the mindset of, maybe I'll read a few pages from a book, because when you're watching television, you're stimulating your brain basically. So you don't want that. Like, that's why we advocate for blue light blocking glasses and, turning the lights down. Like as the sun goes down, you're also preparing your home. Like, the blinds go down, the blue light blocking glasses go on. So those are lifestyle types of things. We also, we use essential oils. Lavender and cedarwood are our go-to for a
calming
nighttime diffuser blend. And then, there's things like chamomile tea, lavender tea. I'm big on creating rituals. I have a lot of my clients do tea in the evening or do a golden milk latte, and this goes really well with, sometimes we recommend that people have fruit in their last meal or before bed.
Yeah, so like that's huge. Like, okay, like the fruit thing. So, or even, so to make it simple for you guys. So like, well, okay, so a couple of scenarios. So say you're getting ready to go to bed and you lay down, but your mind is racing. Like it just won't shut off, right? Like there's like, you just have so much shit to do the next day, like I got to do X, Y, and Z tomorrow. And you just didn't get a lot of stuff done that you wanted to get done that day as well. So one simple thing first you can do is like a brain dump, like everything you need to do the next day or that you didn't get done that day, literally write it down on a piece of paper, like a note somewhere. Like they're literally trying to take the thoughts from your brain and you're putting them down on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. Now, that has actually that's helped numerous clients of mine. And it sounds silly a little bit, but it really, really helps. Another thing too is distraction of the mind, if the mind is racing, because you basically need to take it away from those thoughts and calm it down. Things that we like, and to give you options here, guided meditations, great. Any form of meditation, honestly. It could be music, it could be someone talking to you, whatever. Myself, like I need, I have a white noise maker, but I also have an app that plays music. It's just a calming sound, music, tones because my mind's always racing because I'm doing so much, but the white noise maker with that, I fall asleep in probably 10 or 15 minutes, because I do have a lot of thoughts in my head and it just pulls those thoughts out and I'll focus more on the music and then boom, I fall asleep. Another scenario is, okay, say you're waking up at around 2 a.m. or so, 2 to 3 a.m., and this is regularly occurring every single night. So the simplest thing you can do is add in around 100 to 150 grams of fruit before you go to bed. Now, people, okay, why the hell are you telling me to add fruit in? Like, what's magical about fruit? So this is where you want to look at the liver, okay? So obviously your liver stores glycogen just as your muscle does. So during sleep, your liver is basically kind of secreting out a little bit, enough glucose, glycogen, to run other systems in the body, to do their thing, okay? So if the liver is depleted and doesn't have enough glycogen stored, what's going to end up happening is it's not secreting that glucose out. So now your cortisol is going to start, or not your cortisol, but your blood sugar is going to start dropping, all right? Because your liver is not releasing the glucose. So blood sugar starts dropping slowly. It gets to a point where you get in that hypo state, then, oh, boom, cortisol response kicks in because it can't get too low. So obviously cortisol response kicks in, cortisol shoots up. That's what's going to stimulate you to wake up, right? Because cortisol's got to release fuel into the bloodstream to protect yourself, to keep your body alive. So a simple thing is we do fruit because fructose is primarily stored as glycogen in the liver. So having that fruit with your last meal, and it doesn't have to be before you go to bed, just with your last meal. I couldn't tell you how many people we add that in 100, 150 grams of like blueberries. And then after about two nights, they're sleeping better and better and all the way through. It can literally be something that simple.
Yeah, and this is where I like the golden milk latte as well, because I have them add in a teaspoon of honey, and that's the same concept. It's going to fuel the liver throughout the night. Mm-hmm. So like you were saying earlier, this is where people are thinking, oh, I have to pee. Well, no.
You just have to be, because you are awake, but it's not causing you to wake up.
Right.
Right. So it can be simple things, guys, but also like do that. Like try to implement one or two things at most, mm-hmm. and not everything. Right. And obviously people are working all hours of the night. And like, I understand that. Look, we all have crazy lives. I have to stay up late. Nicole does too. We have to work longer hours. That's going to happen. But you can't allow that to be your norm. You have to start taking care of yourself at some point. I understand if you're like just starting to build a business, or you're in school and you're having to stay up late to study. You have to do those things. I'm not telling you not to, But understand there's got to be some time of self-care and taking care of your body, because if you do not, trust me, you're going to get the repercussions later down the road. And it's like digging yourself into a hole that you're going to have to crawl or climb your way back out of. And sometimes that's a lot more challenging than you may think. It may not be as easy as, oh, I'm going to get more sleep and it fixes everything. That can start the process, but then you may have to do a lot of other things depending on what issues you're dealing with to correct those things. Right? Is there any other scenarios that you can kind of think of off the top of your head that people are dealing with that's, a norm in society today?
Well, there's just a couple of things that I want to touch on as far as things that can hinder your sleep quality, things that you might not be aware of, as far as like having heavy meals an hour or two before bed. That 100% your body is going to be focused on digestion and not on sleeping and recovery. So you want to avoid that. Same thing with alcohol. I mean, alcohol is going to raise your heart rate. So you're going to have some trouble there. Although people have kind of that placebo thinking that they're sleeping better sometimes with alcohol. But exercise as well. Try not to, I know some people don't have a choice. They need to exercise in the evening. But again, kind of giving yourself at least that 2 to 3 hour window, because then you still have to have your post-workout meal. So anything that you can do to, again, get your body in that rest and digest to prepare for bed. Because the biggest takeaway here is that you're really, you're hindering yourself when it comes to feeling your best and from progress and aesthetics.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't expect for great fat loss on 5 hours of sleep. Like, they just don't go together.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the cosmetic benefits, you got to take care of the other stuff first. Another thing I can give you guys a little hack on, like Nicole's talking, like I know some people, they have to work out after their job, like in the evening, and some people aren't getting home from the gym till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And then they got to get back up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And it's like they get home at 8, and then they got to prepare things. And then they got to hopefully get into bed like 10:30, 11 at the latest. So you're obviously, when you train, you drive up that sympathetic response, and you're driving cortisol up, everything up. So the absolute priority is bringing that down into that parasympathetic state as fast as possible, especially from the evening time. So when you're doing that, a couple supplements that can help you with this. Taurine is one. Taurine is something that will calm the body, around 2 to 3 grams post-workout. Another one that we really like is L-theanine. You can go around 300 to 400 milligrams post-training. Again, it has a calming effect on the body. And then another one's going to be magnesium. The easiest and most simple one is biglycinate, because it's the most bioavailable. So taking that post-training. And then also when you're stop training, is to do something like a parasympathetic activity, meaning go walk right after you get done training, do some deep breathing to calm yourself down, stretching while you're breathing, anything to put you back into that parasympathetic state as fast as possible. So when you go home, you have your meal, you prepare everything, get ready to go to bed, and you can fall asleep easier instead of that sympathetic response driven up. And another thing is, do not take freaking caffeine pre-workout if you have to work out at 6 p.m. It's almost like it's a non-negotiable for me when I tell clients, and people can agree with me or they cannot, but caffeine is obviously a stimulant. If you have to work out at 6 p.m., I have like a curfew, like after 3 o'clock, I don't want clients having caffeine. Now, I'm not saying never, ever, ever, but 90% of the time, no caffeine after 3 p.m. because it can disrupt sleep. And then you're also getting that artificial production of cortisol when you're taking the caffeine. So pre-workout, there's all kinds of options. A lot of times, look, if you're in a caloric surplus, you really don't need caffeine, okay? You should have plenty of energy in your body to do what you need to do in the gym. All right, it's almost like a placebo. I have to have my pre-workout, man. It's like, oh, you're going to get that buzz. But as long as all the other systems are fine, the food is all you need. And if you need a little bit of kind of focus stimulation, let's do non-stimulant based things. All right. There's plenty of those out there, nootropics that are out there that you can take pre-workout, things like alpha GPC, and tyrosine to help improve those acetylcholine levels or those dopamine levels enough to give you some focus going into your training, but aren't going to overstimulate the mind, right? And body, and like keep you wired for the next 5 hours before you need to go to bed. Like, I mean, I can go on for days for all these little things that do this to people, and they're not just aware because that's just their routine. Like, I need caffeine to work out. There's another thing too, like Nicole touched on earlier, was the blue light blocker glasses. You know, when you're utilizing them, like for the effects that we want at night, they need to be the tinted versions. Now, I'm not saying like the clear ones are worthless, because it's still better than nothing. Usually the clear ones are only blocking around 50% of blue light. Me, because I'm super anal, like I want like just blocking 90% of it, 95%. That's going to be more like kind of the red or the orange tint ones. And I typically will tell clients once they're done with their task for the day, it's dark outside, you're turning the lights down, then put the glasses on 90 minutes to 2 hours before bed. That way you're not having those excitatory impulses go crazy in your brain. And that's the whole thing, like Nicole saying, get off the laptops and whatever, something that just doesn't, push that stimulation within the brain, that you're calming the system down, right? Any other things that you can think of off the top of your head?
You had mentioned like magnesium in the post-workout scenario, but we actually recommend it post-workout and before bed.
Yeah.
I've seen a huge difference with some people in the way that they're able to just calm themselves with magnesium, and can tell a big difference in their sleep quality.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, guys, everybody's deficient in magnesium. I don't care how good your diet is. Like, it runs, there's like 300 different processes in the body that it does. And if you think you're getting enough of that from food, you're sadly mistaken. There's so much research on this. So get your magnesium. And I do like a little mix of different magnesiums. But at the end of the day, as long as you're getting a glycinate in there, then that's fine. You'll be good to go from there. I think that'll be a good stopping point there. I don't want to, again, we want you to have some simple takeaways here. Hope you guys got a lot out of this. But at the end of the day, guys, I mean, lifestyle, routines are huge here. You have to be willing to make these changes if you want to improve your progress, if you want to lose body fat, if you want to build muscle tissue, if you want to have energy all day long, quality of life. Like we're always focusing on the bigger picture with clients. It's not a 12-week transformation type deal, or the instantaneous or instant gratification things that most people are looking for. We ask like, where you want to be a year from now, 2 years from now, right? We want longevity. We want quality of life, and creating a balanced lifestyle, balanced routines that you can live with, is going to help you get to where you want to go. So guys, thank you again for joining us on the REVIVECAST. If you could please, subscribe to our channel, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us out so much. Again, if you have any questions, obviously you can DM Nicole, you can DM myself. We'll be happy to answer, and we will talk to you soon.